Can you imagine what it's like to stand on the podium being about to conduct the Eroica Symphony of Beethoven? What is it like face to face with Beethoven the giant, Zeus with the thunderbolt, Thor with his hammer, and in this first movement alone, the hammer blows rain thick and fast, beginning with the two opening chords, and hardly ever letting up. And before you know it, you get this. And before you know it, you've got this. And so it goes. Even in the lyrical sections, there are constant unexpected stabs, sforzati, punctuating the flowing lines. Like here. There's one place where you wouldn't expect stabs, but they come. Little stabs infecting this flowing line. There's no let-up in this tension. Beethoven stamps and howls his way through more than 15 minutes. And that's on the first movement. All in all, he keeps it up for a good 50 minutes. But it's not all stamping and howling. People tend to pigeonhole composers as well as artists in general, and Beethoven's pigeonhole is clearly labeled the raging Titan. He stamps and he howls. Charm, for example, is not one of the attributes usually associated with Beethoven, nor is the gift for pure melody, as is associated with Schubert, say, or Tchaikovsky. And yet, there is charm abounding in this symphony, as well as one of the prettiest tunes on record. All of which goes to prove that when one is dealing with a spirit as cosmic as that of Beethoven's, whatever one says invites a counterstatement or a contradiction. The answer to the Beethoven phenomenon is not really expressible, except in terms of the mysterious genius of a man who is capable of uniting all contradictions into one single perfect entity. Of all the hundreds of points that could be made about this Fourth Symphony, there is one that keeps nagging at me every time I restudy it for a performance, and that is the very beginning, the introduction. This rather lugubrious, slowly paced prelude seems adumbration of a most mysterious and profound work to come. A symphony of great passion, perhaps, a colossus of rage and despair, when in fact what does follow is a four-movement fun fest. First movement of almost Santa Claus jollity, followed by a sweet and tender slow movement, a wildly syncopated scherzo, and a virtuosic romp of a finale. Why then this mysterious introduction which hovers around minor modes, tiptoeing its tenuous way through ambiguous, unrelated keys, and so reluctant to settle down into its final B-flat major? There, I think, lies one of the greatest surprises in all of Beethoven's work. A body of work, mind you, that lives and feeds on surprises. But this is a surprise in reverse, because during this introduction, we don't yet know, of course, the four jolly movements that are to come. And so it is not the introduction that's the surprise at all, but the whole symphony which is to follow. Therefore, if this Fourth Symphony is not gigantic like its predecessor, the Eroica, It is surely gigantic in that sense, at least. That it is the biggest surprise package Beethoven has ever handed us.
Three G's and an E flat. What is it about these three G's and an E flat, 3 eighth notes and a half note, that are so pregnant and so meaningful that a whole symphonic movement can be born of? 3 G's and an E flat, nothing more. Anybody could have thought of them, maybe. People have been wondering for years just what it is that endows this musical figure with such potency. All kinds of silly music appreciation theories have arisen. I'm sure you remember some of them from school. That it's fate knocking at the door, that it's the trumpets announcing Judgment Day, that it's a bird that sang in the Vienna woods, that Beethoven overheard, that it's V for victory. Oh, there are millions of them, and none of them actually tell us a thing. Because the truth of the matter is that the real meaning of this figure lies in all the notes which follow it. In all the notes, all the 500 measures of music that follow it in this first movement. And Beethoven, more than any other composer before or after him, I think, had the ability to find the exactly right notes that had to follow his themes. That, after all, is the real function of what we call form. Form is not a mold for jello into which we pour notes and expect the result to be a rondo or a minuet or a sonata in an automatic way. The real function of form is to take us on a varied and complicated journey. And to do this, the composer has to have a corresponding inner roadmap. He has to know what the next destination is going to be. In other words, he's got to know what the next note has to be. He must convey to us a sense of rightness, a sense that whatever note succeeds the last is the only possible note that can rightly happen at that instant. We already know the opening bars of the symphony, almost too well, I should say. Now, we also know the answer to this. Good. How Beethoven has made his initial statement. What does he do now? How does he go on to develop it? When we hear a symphony today, it sounds so simple and right that it must have spilled out of Beethoven in one steady gush. But not at all. Beethoven left pages and pages of discarded material, similar to these sketches here, enough to fill a whole book. This sketch is so symmetrical. In other words, whatever the right hand does, the left hand imitates, the kind of monkey-like way. This makes for a quality of being static. It doesn't seem to want to go anywhere. And that's fatal at the outset of a journey, especially of a symphonic journey. It doesn't seem to have that mystery and whispered promise of things to come that the right version has. Instead, this sketch music gets stuck in its own repetitions. It just doesn't build. He rejected, he rewrote, he tore up, he crossed out. He sometimes altered passages as much as 20 times. Because he, of all people, had a sense of drive throughout his music that is second to none. But this sketch just doesn't drive. It is again, like the first one, static and stuck. Now this sketch is different. This has real excitement and build in it.